Hi friends, welcome back to A Global Kitchen. Now recently I posted a photo on social media of a snack that I made for my family. It's an Italian chickpea flatbread called Farinata. And so many of you asked for the recipe. I'm back in the kitchen today, making it for the family, but also sharing with you the recipe and the technique so you can make it in your own home kitchen. Now there are so many different types of chickpea flour flatbreads. In Italy you have Farinata and it goes by different names in different regions. In southern France you have Soca, and in India you have chile. And I'm sure that there's many more that I'm not aware of. Now the great thing is that since it's made with chickpea flour, it's also gluten-free. So if you have family members that have gluten intolerances, this is a great recipe to add to your repertoire. But most importantly, it's really easy to make and adaptable with so many different types of flavors. Today I'm using some besan, also called gram flour, that's commonly used in South Asian cooking. You'll also see it labeled as chickpea or garbanzo or ceci flour. I like to weigh it out instead of measuring it by cup. It gives me a more accurate result of the texture and consistency I want for the batter. Whisk in about half of the water to form a smooth, creamy paste. Then gradually whisk in the rest of the water. If you see the batter is a little lumpy, strain it. Set it aside for 30 minutes to give the chickpea flour time to fully rehydrate. Or refrigerate it for several days. Remember to bring it back to room temperature before using it. Often some foam will rise to the top of the batter. Skim it off and discard. You may think the batter is too thin, even after it's sat for a while. But don't worry, you want it to be the consistency of light cream. Whisk in a couple of tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. In order to make sure the farinata isn't too thick or thin, I like to portion out the batter. For this 12-inch, 30-centimeter pan, measure out 300 milliliters or 1 1/4 cups of batter. Normally it's made in an oven, but I've figured out a technique where you can start it on top of the stove, finish it under the broiler, and that helps get a crispy bottom and crispy edges and then a nice golden top. And I find it's an easier way to replicate what you would normally get in Italy coming out of those pizza ovens. Set a rack in the upper third part of your oven and turn the broiler on high. If you plan on putting some topping ingredients on the farinata, prepare them. Today I'm going to use store-bought pesto and some soft mozzarella. Add 1 tablespoon of olive oil to the skillet and heat it over medium-high heat. Make sure you use a skillet that's okay to go into the oven. Swirl the oil to completely coat the bottom of the skillet. Gently stir the batter before adding it to the pan, especially if it's sat for a while, as chickpea flour tends to settle as it sits. When the oil shimmers, pour in the measured batter. The batter should slightly sizzle when it hits the pan. Let it cook for 2 to 3 minutes. At that point, the batter should be set around the edges, and there should be also very little liquid batter on the top. If you're planning to add a topping, do so now. I'm spreading a tablespoon of store-bought pesto and then adding some of the sliced mozzarella. Transfer the farinata to the oven. Leave it in the oven for 4 to 5 minutes or until the top is lightly golden brown and the edges are crispy. Use a spatula to loosen the farinata from the bottom of the pan and slide it onto a cutting board before portioning it. You want the bottom to be golden and crispy. Next, I'm going to make a plain farinata in a smaller cast iron pan using the same technique. Also, because cast iron pans conduct heat better, you'll most likely have to reduce the heat just a bit so the bottom doesn't darken too quickly. You'll notice that since the pan was hotter when I added the batter, some tiny bubbles have formed as it cooks during the first couple of minutes. Looks like this time the heat of the pan was a tad higher than I'd prefer, as the center of the farinata is a bit darker than I'd like. But I really like the golden color around the edges. If you're planning to serve the farinata au naturel without any topping or spread, lightly brush the top with some olive oil and sprinkle over some fleur de sel. So we have our farinata, we have our pesto mozzarella. There's not much left, most of it was eaten for lunch. We have our rosemary fleur de sel. I'm gonna have a taste of each. That's really great. The little bit of salt on top really helps. It's lovely. The great thing about this batter is that it's really versatile. So you can use different flavor combinations. So use Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, even Indian flavors. If you want to, make one that's plain or just with a little bit of herbs in it. And then when you take it out of the oven, let it cool a bit, and then you can put things like tapenade, eggplant caponata, or even spread some goat cheese on top. It's really great to serve this with drinks before dinner, or even as a light meal. So with a salad, with a soup, or even a stew. So today I'm serving it with this saffron fennel potato stew, and it's a great combination. And don't forget to check out the saffron fennel potato stew recipe. If you make this recipe, please leave me a comment below and let me know what flavor combinations you tried and how it turned out. And don't forget to subscribe to A Global Kitchen for more great recipes. Bye and happy cooking.